Peace and blessing, folks. Hope all is well. Um, wanted to make a video today on about a situation that just happened a few days ago. On a rabbi's Facebook page, he had a few posts which are, for the most part, not controversial, but the posts became controversial. This is something that happens a lot on social media. Something that I'm not against, and something that most Jewish people are not against. I mean, religious Jews are very keen and aware of respectful debate, discussion about Torah matters about the Bible, different concepts. This is how iron sharpens iron type of stuff, right? This particular rabbi is very known. A lot of people know him. He's, does a lot of videos, a lot of teachings. It was interesting to me because I don't think I've ever seen him react this way, but it could be that I don't know him very well, and I'm not part of his school of learning or anything like that. I've seen a few of his videos, read a few of his articles, and he's pretty decent. Teaches Torah, etc. I know something that he does a lot is he teaches a lot, and this is why his post and the video he made were pretty controversial. He teaches a lot about Jesus at times, or he touches this topic. What transpired was he was saying certain things about the Messiah and how these things goes, especially if you have Christians involved and Messianics and stuff who are very zealous and fervent of their beliefs and their belief in Jesus. They'll come in and they'll say a couple things, Jesus, Messiah, whatever. The rabbi had his things to say. I could say that a majority of the people that comment and stuff like that are maybe not prepared, haven't learned enough to be able to even have these discussions in depth, using sources. I tell people a lot of times it doesn't matter what your personal opinion is. That's neither here or there. We all have them. But, I mean, can you prove it? Do you know the history? Are you educated in the history? Are you educated in the Torah sources? In the sources concerning Jesus as a religious leader within his historical and religious context? And not even many so-called scholars are as educated as one would think, right? The rabbi had something to say about the Messianic concept. There's a couple points that I'll touch on, and I'll try to get down to them one by one. But he had something to say about the Messiah, and I kind of listened, and there was a couple of my friends that were on the post too, and people were chiming in, so I wanted to chime in as well. And this was concerning the Messianic concept. What will the Messiah do? Who he will be? And these things have evolved throughout the generations. And if we're talking about at least from Second Temple times till today, these things have evolved. Remember that in the Second Temple times, and the times of the Second Temple while withstanding the days of Jesus and his apostles, the Masorah, what we know as the oral Torah, was not codified, meaning it was not in its current figure as it is today. It was pretty much oral, okay, passed on from teacher to student, etc. This is the way Jesus and the apostle would have known it. And what transpired after the destruction of the temple in 70 Common Era was something that the Jewish community had to do in order to survive in the exile. So something was done that was not supposed to be done, and they codified the oral law, the oral Torah. So a lot of things that have transpired all the way coming down to our days is the elaboration and the way the Spirit has guided us to this day, and many great sages and rabbis who have been able to teach us many of these secrets and many of the secrets of the Torah, So a lot of things have unraveled. A lot of secrets have come to light, which help us and draw and brings us near and nearer to the redemption. So that has to be understood as well. But he says certain things, like Messiah can't die. These are things that are already discussed in the Gemara. As a matter of fact, the Gemara discusses whether the Messiah can be someone who comes from the dead, and there are a few religious Jewish organizations that believe that their rabbi, though he has passed away, can still quite be the Messiah, and they cite sources, various sources. Now, if the rabbi that is in question here would have said, I don't necessarily subscribe to this opinion, but it is a valid opinion that the Messiah can come from among the dead, and I know that for the majority of the Jewish community, the Jewish religious community doesn't believe that the Messiah will be someone who comes from the dead. And that's okay. I want to say this outright. Me and a few of my friends who were involved in this conversation have no intentions at all. We're not missionaries. I, myself, am a Noachide. And I feel like my mission and a lot of my job is that I am actively involved in helping the Christian community, non-Jews for the most part, to know the truths about the historical Jesus, who was not a Christian, by the way, but a religious Jew within Torah Judaism. And these are a lot of the truths that can be proven. Many scholars have testified to these facts, and these are the things that I try to help Christians understand, which helps to bring us closer to the redemption. I am not a missionary. I myself repudiate missionary activity. I do not believe that the Jews need to accept Jesus Christ to be saved. They are saved by the covenant that God has given to them. Salvation is not something that I accept this person so I am saved. That's not even how it works for non-Jews. Everyone will be judged based on their deeds, not their creeds. So this is a first and foremost and very important thing that one should hear. At the same time, I have problems with anti-missionaries too, who their sole job is to tackle missionary activity. I understand that it has a place, but I also have been able to see that anti-missionaries also engage in what I would say is pretty deceptive work. For a while, they easily are able to dismiss and teach the errors of Christianity and its ways. They do not try to help them know the truths of the context, either because they don't know them themselves, the anti-missionaries, or because these are one of the points, they don't know the history very well. So what has happened is that, for the most part, the Jewish community for almost 2,000 years now has reacting to Christianity's output, their view and their beliefs on Jesus, but not Jesus within his own context. These two things are two different worlds. Christians have persecuted Jews to death for a long, very, very long time. So there's a lot of emotional impact there. Jews are the Christ killers. These are the things that have came from the mouths of very Christians, and this is something that people who believe in Jesus or find him to be a great leader, whatever. These are some of the sins that we have to deal with, and it is a tragedy that Jesus has been used for these things. But mind you, Jesus is not a Christian. Okay. These are the words of various scholars like Geza Vermes and David Flusser. He was not a Christian, but a religious Jew. Jesus himself, I have no doubts about. Jesus himself will repudiate Christianity with every inch of his fiber in his body and soul. Jesus was not God. Jesus believed in the Creator. He has a God and was subjected to the Creator in his will, meaning the Torah and the mitzvot, the commandments. So were his disciples. So for the most part, the Jewish community has been reacting against this boogeyman that has been created. And to be honest, the Jews have they have no need to try to help Christians, understand anything. But the problem that I see is a big injustice. Jesus lived during a time in the first century where there was a lot of corruption, Second Temple times. And some of the religious organizations or groups that were at that time, we should discuss, right? And I think that there's been a misjudgment. I believe that Jesus, much like Joseph, the righteous, the brother of the son of Jacob, was misunderstood and ultimately was sold to Egypt. I believe that Jesus was sold to Rome, and now, like Joseph was dressed in Egyptian garbs, Jesus is now dressed in Roman garbs and the Roman religious ideology, and it's very difficult to see past that. Just like the brothers could not see past Joseph's garbs, the language, religious ideology connected to him. So it's that difficult. But the religious groups at that time, and I am not saying this because the New Testament says it, though it does say it. It points out that there was a lot of religious corruption amongst the Sadducees. There was a group of priests, of Kohanim, at that time, who were the leaders. They were the leaders. They were in control. They were control of the temple service and all that stuff. But many of the leading priests were set up like puppets by Rome. Okay. The priesthood was not given, the high priesthood was not given to the one who was supposed to be in office at that time according to Torah standards, but it was actually the office was given by Rome. Whoever could be in bed with Rome could have that office, and that's how it was. The New Testament explains this corruption there, and the Sadducees were also seen as heretics. This is by Jewish tradition, but the Gemara, Jewish sources say this. The Talmud says that the Sadducees were corrupt. The Talmud also says that not only the Sadducees, but the majority of the Pharisees, or many of the different schools or groups of the Pharisees, were also corrupt. Different types of corruption. There was a lot of corruption. The Talmud cites this. We give you the sources. Josephus, he also says this. So when people are reading the Gospels and they see Jesus he's rebuking the Pharisees, he's rebuking the Sadducees, what do I hear from anti-missionaries, from Jewish rabbis? Okay, mind you, a Jewish rabbi doesn't necessarily mean that he's a scholar in the New Testament. 99% of the time, they're not. A Jewish rabbi is supposed to lead a community, teach them the mitzvos, teach them the laws of Shabbat and laws of kashrut, and know how to lead the prayer service on Shabbos, etc. That doesn't necessarily make him a scholar or historian on these matters. So, reading in the Gospels, an anti-missionary will say something like, you see how Jesus rebukes the religious Jewish authorities as if they were righteous, or as if they had never seen an inner debate amongst rabbis. Christians don't know this, but Jews, they should know this. Anyone who has actually studied it a little bit know that there is an inner discussion here, an inner conflict amongst Jews within Judaism. His rebuke is no different from the rebuke of other great prophets or other great righteous men against their own people. Was Isaiah a heretic? Was Moses a heretic? Was Jeremiah a heretic? I mean, in the eyes of many of the Jews of that day, the religious leaders of their day, of Jeremiah's day, of Isaiah's day, maybe so, but not as we know it now. No. The only person who has never gotten a pass is Jesus. Never given the benefit of the doubt. That's actually a mitzvah. Don't judge a man until you has stood in his feet, in his shoes. So there's nothing actually heretical that Jesus has said in the rebuke. Jesus is seen as a prophetic prophet of that time, as a messenger of God, rebuking the nation, rebuking the religious leaders, authority that was corrupt and in bed with Rome, getting people to turn back in tshuva and repentance in service of God. This is what he was doing. Did he believe he was the Messiah? Maybe so. Well, what crime or what sin is there in that? I can name you a few other religious candidates, people who believed that they were the Messiah. That's not a sin. So this is important. This is important to understand that there's an inner dialogue going in here. That Christianity, they don't even have not even an inch of a hint of what's going on. But Jews should know what's going on in here, if given the chance. Now, besides that, Jesus was tried by the Sadducees with false accusations, and false charges were brought up about him, and he was handed over to Rome. Okay, they sold him over to Rome, and his charge was, again, this must be stated, false charges were brought up against, nothing that stuck. So finally, what did they ended up giving him up to Rome? As an agitator, a rebel, which this was a capital offense. Anyone claiming to be a king other than Caesar, this was rebellion, and Rome did not stand for that. They crucified thousands, hundreds of thousands of Jews, or hundreds of thousands of people. It didn't matter. Jesus was another one, very easy, and so he was crucified. Now, besides that, we need to talk about other things. Like, what was I going to say? The other thing I wanted to talk about was the messianic expectations. This is something that, the rabbi had brought up a source from the Rambam, which I am more than okay. I actually cited the same source and said the same things, that when we're talking about messianic expectations, there are various opinions. And there's actually no halacha on the messianic expectations or things that have to do with the Gula, because we don't know. We don't actually know the details. We have some insights. We know some things. There are different opinions, and we're close enough. But the exact details of how things will be played out, we won't know until actually they play out. There are things about, there are halachot concerning Messiah, meaning that he has to be a son of David through a certain line. There are actual laws, how he would be anointed with oil and how and all stuff like that. But the expectation, something like, how would he come? Will Elijah be the exact person to bring him out? We have opinions, all that. Or can like one of the things he said, can Messiah be someone who died, or can he be someone who came back from the dead? These things we don't exactly know, because there are so many different opinions, and some of the opinions are to say that, yes, Messiah can be someone who has already passed on. The Gemara says this, and various Kabbalistic sources talk about this. Now, besides that, there are various scholars who I stand on the shoulders. Me and many of my colleagues stand on the shoulders of many great Orthodox rabbis, traditional rabbis, Jewish scholars in general, who teach about the historicity of Jesus of Nazareth in his religious context. Jesus is not a Christian, folks. He's not an evangelical. I don't care how many times you say that. And you would have to know a little bit about me personally, which most people don't know. Everyone can be biased in some ways, but no one can say that I'm biased towards and against, for Christianity. I have left Christianity more than 16 years ago, and I walk a very narrow path. Okay, I myself have been going to Jewish synagogue for more than 15 years. So this is something that, I have done the work. I have been studying, I have been reading, researching, and I want to come to the truth, right? And I continue to walk in truth. But truth is truth. No matter if everyone believes it, no matter if no one believes it, it is the truth. Truth is the signature of God, not of anyone's private. It doesn't belong to anyone privately, right? Now, we have a few, like the Yavits, Rabbi Yaakov Emden, who said that Jesus of Nazareth was a law-abiding Jew who taught Torah. He actually said that Jesus brought a double blessing to the world because he strengthened the Torah, right, for the Jews, and he taught to the nations in the sense that his teachings went out to the world as well, and that his Gentile followers who came afterwards, they were the ones who corrupted his message, and they're the ones who did not understand his message. The Rashbat, another great rabbi, he said basically the same thing. We have the sources. I have the sources. Rabbi Eliyahu Benomozeg, he said the same thing. He understood the differences between Christianity and Jesus of Nazareth. Two different things. Christianity came almost 300 years after Jesus' death. Come on. The Gospels, the New Testament, predates Christianity as it is a religious institution in Rome. Now, that Christians, for the most part, are the only ones who have actually read and learned from the teachings of Jesus, that's neither here or there. But they predate the Catholic Church. This is something that we can see from scholarship. We know the dating of the Gospels. We know the dating of the rest of the New Testament letters. The teachings of Jesus. Another great rabbi, Orthodox. These are Orthodox rabbi. Another Orthodox rabbi, Rabbi Eliyahu Soloveitchik. He wrote a whole commentary on the Gospel of Matthew and Luke, or Mark, I believe, showing that the teachings of Jesus are entrenched. They are standing on the foundation, which is the Torah. Jesus taught, do not think that I came to annul or abolish the laws, the Torah, or the prophets. I did not come to annul it, but to fulfill it, meaning to keep it. To keep it. If anyone nullifies even one of the least of the mitzvot, they shall be least in the kingdom of heaven. But if anyone teaches them to others, they shall be great. He further taught, if your righteousness does not supersede that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you cannot get into the kingdom of heaven. Christians seem to miss that. He did not try to lower the standard. He raised it. He raised it. Meaning, you had to really truly love God. You had to be about the life, truly loving and serving God, if you wanted to be one of his disciples. We could cite various sources, but I just wanted to say that this conversation is a conversation that must be done with respect and with honesty. We live in the times where these things are no longer hidden. A lot of these sources are now in different languages. Anyone can read them for themselves. So, you know, I believe that the Jewish community, for the most part, the religious leaders, have reacted towards Christianity. Christianity is not Jesus. And the way you interpret, or the way you wish to hear Jesus through Christian mouth, is not the historical Jesus found in the Gospels. I question that. I teach against that. I am in constant dialogue with Christians, teaching them the correct context. I stand on the shoulders of scholars like David Flusser, the late David Flusser, Geza Vermes, Shmuel Sofrai, Mark Nanos, so many other scholars that I can name. Who else, right? David Flusser, I named him. Joseph Klausner, Harvey Falk, Orthodox Rabbi Harvey Falk, Shmuley Boteach, he taught about the kosher Jesus. So many different names that you know don't come to mind at the second. But I've talked about this many times. It's just that no one is trying to convert, no one here. But if I hear something erroneous, or I hear a lie taught about Jesus, it is my job to be able to stand up against that. Okay? I'm not a missionary. I don't want any Jew to accept Jesus. He doesn't need to accept him for his salvation. But the lies need to stop. There's a great mitzvah in the Torah of redeeming captives. Well, Jesus is one of these captives. He's still captive in Rome. And we should deal a little bit more sensitive with this topic. The rabbi said something else that caught me off guard. He said something like, if you're Jewish, you're Jewish. You know, even if you're not very observant, whatever, you know, be a Jew. But if you're Christian, you're no longer a Jew. Or if you believe in Jesus, that's what he said. If you believe in Jesus, you're no longer Jewish. You're a Christian. You know, he doesn't make any separation in anyone who believes in Jesus. It doesn't matter if he was a Jew in the first century who believed in Jesus. Though there was no Christianity, he's still Christian. But it was funny that he says you lose your Jewishness if you believe in Jesus. I've heard this before from other rabbis. I mean, it's just kind of surprising because I've also heard other rabbis and I've heard sources that you cannot lose your Jewishness. If you're born from a Jewish mother, if you converted, you're a Jew to the day you die. I don't care if you're an atheist, or I don't care. The funny thing is that you still be Jewish if you're Buddhist, if you're an atheist or whatever. But if you believe in Jesus, you lose your Jewishness. That's the funniest thing ever. You can't lose your Jewishness, okay? So false, okay? Teach the truth. Stop calling people liars, right? That's not true. And I'm not calling you a liar, but that's not true. And learn to speak the truth about the historicity of the issue at hand. Jesus and his apostles were Jews within Judaism. And this group can continue on going. You could read books by Shlomo Pines, etc. They still survived, a minority group, Jewish believers in Jesus, all the way into the 7th, 8th century in Arab lands. And sometimes even further than that, and until they finally disappeared. Scholars say that they went back into the Jewish community in hiding, never to be heard of again. And some others fell into the other side, into the hands of Christianity. We have Jesus and the apostles, their seichel, their intellect, their spirituality in the writings of the gospel. And that, my friends, I'm here to tell you, not just because I say so, but because many Orthodox rabbis who are learned in Torah from their childhood to the day of their death have said, after reading the Gospels, that Jesus was a law-abiding Jew and his teachings were within Torah Judaism. If that makes you uncomfortable, if you don't like that, you can scream heresy, you can scream whatever you want. I don't care. It is what it is. We must deal with it. All right? Peace.